Seems like even the CEO of Binance has no idea why this is happening. What do you think? Why did it get so low today, then minorly bounce back, and where does it go next?
Well, of course, it's always hard to know for sure. But one of the things I do worry about on an intermediate term basis, because I love Bitcoin and several other cryptocurrencies on a longer term basis, and I think Ethereum in particular looks good here. But we do worry that at least part of this move, and again, I'm a long term bull, but part of the move we've seen since the big rally we saw initially from March until May of this year, March of last year until May of this year, has been pushed by the excess liquidity from the Federal Reserve. Yes, it would have gone up on its own, but I question how much more it has gone because of this excess liquidity. And the reason why, of course, we're starting to see the Fed start to talk about tapering in a more serious way. I mean, despite what the Fed chairman's saying, the rest of the Fed is laying the groundwork for a taper this year. And so, some of that froth has to be pulled out of the cryptocurrency, which is good. I mean, these cryptocurrencies are going to change the world, but we have to remember that Amazon changed the world too, but it got out of hand a little ahead of itself in 1999, 2000, came down in a big way, and then was able to rally back over a longer period of time. And that's kind of, I think, what we're seeing right now in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, which could mean that we'll see a little bit more weakness before we see a great opportunity to buy it for the longer term holders.
Obviously, it seems like in the short term, we're seeing the impact of some of these decisions being made in China, Leah, the crackdown on mining, the crackdown on crypto transactions. How do you see that playing out in the short versus the long term? I mean, is it a good thing that the center of gravity could move to other countries for mining or not?
I do think it's a good thing in the long term. It's very dangerous to not have decentralization in a currency that's based on the principles of decentralization. I think that sentiment around Bitcoin is very bearish right now over those worries of, stemming really from the dual threats coming out of China of the mining ban and also crackdowns on crypto transactions. So I think it's, a little more broader than that. So many investors are then concerned about how this will affect demand, volumes, hash rates more. And we're seeing a lot of selling right now due to that uncertainty. Now, what you're also seeing, though, as to your point about China, is, mining rigs are now being relocated to the United States. So the question is, how will that affect price when they get turned back online, when they're in a new location? And I think that will be a very positive position.
So curious then, Matt, if you think it could go lower, how low could it go and when?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. Today we saw a real big pickup in volume, which a lot of people would say was kind of a washout trade. And of course, the technicals have been such a big, important driver for a lot of these cryptocurrencies for the last, certainly in recent months anyway. And when you get that kind of washout move, that really gives you, an impetus to say, okay, all the sellers are done. We're going to see a nice rally. The problem is we saw a similar move on May 19th, and the rally did come, but only lasted a couple of days, and we rolled back over. So to answer your question more directly, if we do indeed roll back over again, I'm looking at the 27,250 level. I know that sounds a little bit specific, but right around the 27 level. That would be a 68% retracement. In other words, Fibonacci, these Fibonacci retracement levels, 68% retracement of the rally from March 2020 until the highs we saw just recently. That would be, I think, a great opportunity. We would probably get that washout move on the technical basis. We'd get that kind of that sentiment to move all the way to the bearish side of the table. And when that happens, then again, there's nobody left to sell. So that's the kind of level that I'm thinking that people want to watch. Having said that, I do need to point out that watch that 200-day moving average on Bitcoin. That's at 43,000 right now. It has rallied up to that level twice, and it's provided incredibly tough resistance. So I guess my point is, if you see a rally above that 200-day moving average before you get the next decline, don't wait for a decline anymore. It's going higher, and it's going to go to 50,000 and a lot higher. So those are the two technical levels I'm really watching: 200 on the downside, 43,000 on the upside.
Okay, so Leah, A, would you agree? And B, what are you telling your clients to do? Are you telling them to diversify? Are you telling them to get in now, or to diversify their crypto assets to get into Ethereum as well? What's the direction?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think it's a great question. And to address my other panelists, I definitely don't disagree. I think that right now, both the technicals and fundamentals are actually a little difficult to discern. I know that may sound like a cop out, but on one hand, you have technicals that are looking very scary and bearish, but also with the swing, some are talking about a Wyckoff spring. You're looking at some technicals that actually do look fairly good. From our research, we're a little lower. We think that the support is more around the $25,000 level. And that's mainly because historically, that's where a lot of corporations and institutions were stockpiling Bitcoin. To your greater question, it's interesting, but a lot of our investors are more long-term hodlers, if you will, and value investors. So, we have a series of trusts as an example. And for our Bitcoin trust, it takes a very different mentality for investing in a trust than, swing trading in the market right now. So I would actually say that, we're seeing inflows during this downturn, has actually been quite interesting for us. Obviously, a happy move. But I'd say that there's a lot of investors out there, and you can see Saylor today, right? From what I was told from a partner today is that MicroStrategy now owns 1 in every 200 Bitcoin that will ever be minted. So you see a lot of panic selling. That's correct. Narrative driven. Absolutely. But Saylor is panic buying, right? So I think that, the importance of, one, going back to your original question, is just the importance of sufficient decentralization and liquidity providers and generally in the ecosystem is necessary. But I think you have different types of buyers at these levels, both at 3,000, 4,000, 40,000, 50,000, 60,000. But we are seeing a lot of inflows right now of value investors.